The blood-red horizon swallowed the setting sun as Serena Summers collapsed onto the dusty trail, her once white petticoat now stained crimson from her bleeding feet. It was the summer of 1868, and the 22-year-old had been walking for 3 days straight after escaping from a stagecoach robbery that had left the other passengers dead. She had run until her boots fell apart, until her stockings shredded, until her bare feet could carry her no further across the harsh New Mexico territory. Serena's throat burned with thirst as she crawled toward a small patch of shade beneath a gnarled mesquite tree. The distant sound of hoofbeats barely registered in her fading consciousness. Was death coming for her at last? She almost welcomed it. "Madam? Good Lord, what happened to you?" The deep voice cut through her delirium. Serena tried to focus on the figure dismounting from a chestnut mare, but the world spun around her. A man knelt beside her, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. She felt gentle hands lifting her head, a canteen pressed to her cracked lips. "Drink slow now," the stranger said. "Too much at once will make you sick." The water tasted sweeter than any wine. Serena gasped as the liquid revived her parched throat, and her vision cleared enough to see her rescuer. He was tall and lean, with eyes the color of prairie grass and a face weathered by sun and wind. His expression was one of genuine concern as he assessed her condition. "Lucas Barton," he introduced himself, tipping his hat slightly. "Ranch foreman at the Silver Creek spread about 10 miles west." "Serena," she managed to whisper. "Serena Summers." Lucas nodded, then his gaze traveled down to her feet. His expression hardened at the sight of the raw, bleeding flesh. "Miss Summers, you need a doctor. Your feet." He removed his bandana, then reached into his saddlebag for a small flask. "This is going to sting something fierce." Before she could protest, he poured whiskey over her wounds. Serena bit back a scream, tears streaming down her dirt-stained cheeks. Lucas worked efficiently, tearing strips from a clean shirt in his saddlebag. With surprising gentleness for such calloused hands, he wrapped each foot carefully. "I am sorry for the pain," he said quietly, securing the makeshift bandages. "But infection out here can kill faster than a bullet." When he finished, Lucas hesitated only a moment before making his decision. "I need to get you back to the ranch. Can you ride?" Serena tried to stand, but her legs buckled instantly. She shook her head, humiliation burning through her exhaustion. Without another word, Lucas gathered her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing to him, her body frail from days without proper food or water. "I've got you," he said, his voice steady as he lifted her onto his horse. Instead of placing her side saddle, he mounted behind her, securing her against his chest with one strong arm. "Just lean back and rest. I'll get you somewhere safe." The rhythmic motion of the horse nearly lulled Serena to sleep, but she fought to stay conscious. "The stagecoach," she murmured. "They killed everyone else." Lucas's arm tightened around her waist. "Bandits. 5 men, wearing bandanas. They didn't see me hide under the coach when it stopped. I ran when they were dividing the money." "You're lucky to be alive," Lucas said, his voice grim. "That must have been the Foster gang. They've been terrorizing this territory for months." As they rode, Lucas told her about Silver Creek Ranch, owned by an elderly couple named Henry and Martha Wilson. They had no children of their own but treated their ranch hands like family. The Wilsons would welcome her, he assured her. They would give her shelter until she recovered. "And where will you go after?" Lucas asked carefully. Serena closed her eyes, the reality of her situation washing over her anew. "I don't know. I was traveling to San Francisco. My aunt lives there, my only living relative. All my money, my letters of introduction, everything was in my trunk on the stagecoach." Lucas didn't respond immediately, but his arm remained steady around her waist as they rode through the gathering darkness. "We'll figure something out," he finally said. "First, let's get you healed." The lights of Silver Creek Ranch appeared just as the moon rose fully over the mesa. Dogs barked at their approach, and a gray-haired woman hurried onto the porch, wiping her hands on her apron. "Lucas Barton, you're late for supper again." Martha Wilson stopped abruptly when she saw Serena cradled in his arms. "Good heavens! Bring her inside, quickly!" The next few hours passed in a blur for Serena. Martha's gentle hands bathed her, dressed her in a clean nightgown, and tucked her into a soft bed in the spare room. The ranch doctor was summoned, a retired army surgeon who lived on a small homestead nearby. He properly cleaned and bandaged Serena's feet, gave her laudanum for the pain, and prescribed strict bed rest. "You're a fortunate young woman, dear," Patterson told her before leaving. "Another day out there, and we'd be burying you instead of treating you." Martha brought her broth and cornbread, insisting she eat even though Serena's stomach rebelled against food after so many days of deprivation. Through the open window, she could hear Lucas's voice as he spoke with Henry Wilson about the stagecoach robbery. "Sheriff needs to know," Henry was saying. "Those bastards can't keep terrorizing decent folks." "I'll ride into town first thing tomorrow," Lucas promised. Serena drifted to sleep with the comforting sounds of the ranch around her, crickets chirping, cattle lowing in the distance, and the low murmur of voices from the bunkhouse where the ranch hands lived. Morning came with the scent of coffee and bacon. Serena opened her eyes to find Martha setting a tray on the bedside table. "Good you're awake," the older woman smiled. "How are those feet feeling today?" "Better, thank you," Serena replied, though they still throbbed painfully. "Mrs. Wilson, I don't know how to repay your kindness." Martha waved away her concerns. "Call me Martha, dear. And there's no need for repayment. Any decent human would do the same." She helped Serena sit up against the pillows. "Lucas told us what happened. That poor stagecoach driver was a friend of Henry's. Been running the route for 15 years. Serena lowered her eyes, remembering the driver's kind face, how he had helped her aboard just hours before his death. "I wish I could have done something. You survived. That's something." Martha patted her hand. "Now eat up. Lucas will want to talk to you before he rides to town. The sheriff will need details about these outlaws." After breakfast, Lucas knocked softly on the doorframe. He'd removed his hat, and his sandy hair was still damp from washing. Without the shadow of his hat brim, Serena could see his eyes clearly, a striking green-gray that reminded her of sage after rain. "Miss Summers," he nodded politely. "May I come in?" "Of course, Mr. Barton." He sat in the chair beside her bed, his large frame making the furniture seem delicate in comparison. "I need to ask you some questions about the men who attacked the stagecoach. Anything you remember might help the sheriff track them down." Serena closed her eyes, forcing herself to recall details she'd tried to forget. 5 men, all on horseback. The leader had a scar above his right eye. Another was missing 2 fingers on his left hand. They called one of them Kid, though he looked older than the others. Lucas wrote everything down in a small notebook. "What about their horses? Any distinguishing marks?" The leader rode a black stallion with a white blaze. Another had a pinto. "I'm sorry, I didn't notice the others." "This is very helpful," Lucas assured her. "One more thing, did they mention where they might be heading next?" Serena concentrated, then nodded slowly. "Yes, they argued about it. The leader wanted to hit another stage on the Santa Fe route, but the others thought it was too risky. They mentioned a place called Devil's Canyon." Lucas's expression darkened. "Devil's Canyon is a hideout for every outlaw between here and the Mexican border. If that's where they're headed, the sheriff will need to gather a proper posse." He stood, tucking the notebook into his shirt pocket. "Thank you, Miss Summers. Rest now. I'll be back by nightfall." "Mr. Barton," Serena called as he reached the door. "Please be careful. These men, they showed no mercy." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I've been riding these territories since I was 16, Miss Summers. I know how to handle myself." After Lucas departed, Martha helped Serena move to a chair by the window so she could watch the ranch activities. The sight of men working together, cattle grazing in the distance, and chickens pecking in the yard brought a sense of normalcy that Serena had feared she might never feel again. Henry Wilson visited briefly, his weathered face creasing into a smile when he saw her color improving. "Lucas says you're headed to San Francisco," he mentioned. "That's quite a journey for a young lady alone." "My aunt runs a dressmaking shop there," Serena explained. "I've been learning the trade since I was a girl. After my parents died last winter, she invited me to join her business." Henry nodded thoughtfully. "Well, you're welcome here until you're fit to travel again. Though I suspect that won't be for several weeks at least, given the state of those feet." The thought of imposing on their hospitality for so long troubled Serena. "I can work," she offered. "Once I'm able to stand. I can cook, clean, mend." "Martha could use the help," Henry acknowledged with a twinkle in his eye. "She's been complaining about being the only woman on a ranch full of men for years. But we'll discuss that when you're stronger." True to his word, Lucas returned by sunset, bringing news that the sheriff was organizing a posse to track the Foster gang. He'd also telegraphed the stage company about Serena's situation, and they promised to compensate her for lost belongings once the bandits were apprehended. "It's not much," Lucas admitted as they sat on the porch after supper. "But it's a start." Serena had insisted on joining the others for the evening meal, though Lucas had carried her to the dining room, her bandaged feet dangling uselessly. Now they watched the spectacular sunset paint the western sky in shades of orange and purple. "I never thought I'd see another sunset," Serena confessed quietly. "When I was crawling along that trail, I was certain I would die there." Lucas studied her profile, noting the strength in her delicate features. "You're tougher than you look, Miss Summers. Not many city women could have survived what you did." She smiled faintly. "I'm not exactly a city woman. I grew up on a small farm in Missouri. My father taught me to be self-sufficient." Her expression clouded. "Though all the self-sufficiency in the world couldn't save them from influenza last winter." "I'm sorry," Lucas said simply. "I lost my parents young too. Father to a mining accident, mother to consumption not long after." This shared experience of loss created a bridge between them. As the days passed and Serena's strength returned, she found herself looking forward to the evenings when Lucas would join her on the porch. He would tell her about the day's work on the ranch, and she would share stories of her childhood or her plans for San Francisco. After 2 weeks, Dr. Patterson declared her feet were healing well, though the scars would remain. "You can try standing tomorrow," he advised, "but no walking distances for at least another week." That evening, Lucas found Serena attempting to rise from her chair without assistance. He rushed forward as she wavered unsteadily. "Whoa there," he cautioned, catching her elbows. "Let's not undo the doctor's good work." "I'm tired of being helpless," Serena admitted, frustration evident in her voice. "Martha has been so kind, but I see how much work she does every day. I want to contribute." Lucas's hands remained on her arms, steadying her. "You will, but rushing won't help." Their faces were closer than they had ever been, and Serena noticed a small scar near his left eye that she hadn't seen before. "How did you get that?" she asked without thinking, nearly reaching up to touch it. Lucas blinked in surprise. "This? Caught the wrong end of a branding iron when I was 18. Nothing heroic." Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary before Lucas cleared his throat and carefully helped her back to the chair. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small wooden carving of a horse, exquisitely detailed despite its small size. "Did you make this?" Serena asked, turning it over in her palm. Lucas nodded, a faint blush coloring his tanned cheeks. "Whittling passes the time during long cattle drives. I thought you might like a souvenir of Silver Creek." "It's beautiful," she whispered, touched by the gesture. What she didn't say was that she didn't need a souvenir. She was already certain she would never forget this place, or the man who had saved her life. The next morning, Martha helped Serena don one of her old dresses, taking up the hem to accommodate her bandaged feet. With Martha on one side and a cane fashioned by one of the ranch hands on the other, Serena made her way carefully to the kitchen. "Now, don't overdo it," Martha cautioned. "Just sit at the table and help me shell these peas for supper." For Serena, the simple task felt like a victory. By the end of the week, she was helping with light chores around the house, and the ranch hands had taken to tipping their hats respectfully whenever they passed. They called her Miss Serena with genuine affection, recognizing her determination to recover. Lucas watched her progress with quiet admiration. One afternoon, he found her sitting on the porch steps, darning one of Henry's socks. "Doctor says I can try riding in a few days," she informed him with obvious excitement. "Would you teach me? I've only ridden a placid farm horse before, never a proper Western mount." "I'd be honored," Lucas replied, settling beside her on the step. "Though I should warn you, once you've felt the freedom of riding these open spaces, the streets of San Francisco might feel too confining." Serena's hands stilled on her mending. "I've been thinking about that. Martha mentioned that the schoolteacher in town is leaving at the end of the month. Her husband got work with the railroad in Colorado." She glanced sideways at Lucas. "I have some education. I taught the neighboring children back home when our local school closed." "You're considering staying?" Lucas asked carefully, his tone neutral despite the sudden alertness in his posture. "Perhaps. At least until I've earned enough to continue to San Francisco properly. The stage company's compensation might take months, and I can't impose on the Wilsons' hospitality forever." Lucas seemed about to say something, then changed his mind. Instead, he reached over and gently tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. The simple gesture sent warmth flooding through Serena's body. "I think you'd make a fine teacher," he said softly, "and Silver Springs could use someone like you." Before Serena could respond, one of the ranch hands galloped into the yard, dust billowing behind his horse. "Lucas!" he shouted. "Sheriff's back with the posse. They caught 2 of the Foster gang." Lucas stood immediately. "Are they at the jail?" "Yep, and the sheriff wants to know if Miss Summers can come identify them. Says it's important." Serena's heart raced at the thought of facing the men who had killed innocent people and left her to die in the wilderness. But she nodded firmly. "I'll go." "You sure?" Lucas asked, concern evident in his eyes. "Yes, I want to see justice done." Lucas helped her into the buggy, cushioning the seat with extra blankets to make the journey more comfortable for her still tender feet. The ride to Silver Springs took nearly an hour, giving Serena time to prepare herself mentally for the confrontation. The town was small but bustling, with a main street lined by wooden buildings, a general store, saloon, telegraph office, and at the far end, the sheriff's office and jail. People stopped to stare as Lucas helped Serena from the buggy. News of the stagecoach survivor had clearly spread. Sheriff Thompson was a broad-shouldered man with a silver mustache and keen eyes that missed nothing. He greeted them at the door of his office. "Miss Summers, thank you for coming. I understand it's not easy for you to travel yet." "I want to help, Sheriff," Serena replied steadily. The sheriff nodded approvingly. We've got two of them locked up. The one they call Kid, and another named Dawson. They're claiming they weren't involved in any stagecoach robbery, just some cattle rustling. I can identify them, Serena assured him. I saw their faces clearly when they thought no one was watching. The jail cells were at the back of the building. Sheriff Thompson led them down a short hallway, where two men lounged behind iron bars. They straightened when they saw Serena, recognition and alarm flashing across their faces before they could hide it. That's them, Serena stated without hesitation, pointing to each in turn. He's the one they called Kid. And that one Dawson, he's the one who shot the driver. You're lying, lady, Dawson snarled, lunging toward the bars. You weren't even there. The leader has a scar above his right eye, Serena continued calmly. One is missing fingers on his left hand. They were planning to hide in Devil's Canyon before hitting another stage on the Santa Fe route. The kid's face had gone pale. How could she know all that? Because she was there, Sheriff Thompson said grimly. And she's just sealed your fate. He turned to Serena. The judge arrives next week for circuit court. Will you testify? Yes, Serena answered without hesitation. Outside the jail, Lucas took her arm, supporting her as they walked slowly toward the general store. You were brave in there, he said quietly. I was terrified, Serena admitted, but it felt good to look them in the eye and know they can't hurt anyone else. As they passed the town's small schoolhouse, a woman in a sensible blue dress was supervising children playing in the yard. She noticed them and walked over, her curious gaze taking in Serena's bandaged feet. You must be Miss Summers, she said. I'm Harriet Miller, the schoolteacher at least for another 2 weeks. Mrs. Wilson mentioned you were leaving, Serena replied. Your students will miss you. Harriet smiled ruefully. I'll miss them too. The town council is desperately trying to find a replacement before the new term starts. She studied Serena thoughtfully. Mrs. Wilson mentioned you might be interested. I'm considering it, Serena acknowledged. Well, you should come by tomorrow if you're able. I can show you around, let you see the curriculum. As they continued toward the general store, Lucas squeezed Serena's arm gently. Sounds like fate is giving you a reason to stay. Serena looked up at him, noting the hopeful expression he was trying to conceal. Perhaps it is. Though I wouldn't want to disappoint my aunt. You could write to her, Lucas suggested. Explain the situation. Maybe she'd understand if you wanted to try teaching here for a term before deciding. Serena nodded slowly. I could, and it would give me time to earn proper traveling money. What she didn't say was that it would also give her time to understand the feelings developing between her and the quiet cowboy beside her, feelings that grew stronger with each passing day. In the general store, Lucas insisted on buying her a new journal and pen. For your teaching plans, he explained with a smile. But as they browsed the shelves, Serena noticed him examining a pretty blue ribbon, running it through his fingers thoughtfully before returning it to its place. The next week passed in a flurry of activity. Serena visited the schoolhouse twice more, growing increasingly excited about the possibility of teaching. Her feet continued to heal, and she took her first proper ride on a gentle mare Lucas had selected for her. The freedom of movement after weeks of confinement was exhilarating, and Lucas's proud smile as she mastered the basics warmed her from within. The day before the judge was due to arrive, Lucas found Serena sitting by the creek that gave the ranch its name. She was reading one of Martha's books, her feet now in soft moccasins crafted by Henry dangling in the cool water. Mind if I join you? Lucas asked. Serena smiled, patting the grassy bank beside her. I was hoping you would. Lucas sat, removing his boots to place his feet alongside hers in the stream. They sat in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching dragonflies skim over the water's surface. I've been thinking, Lucas finally said. his voice hesitant in a way Serena had never heard before. "About you staying in Silver Springs." "I think I will," Serena replied. "At least for a while. I spoke with the town council yesterday. They've offered me the teaching position." Lucas's face lit up. "That's wonderful news. I wrote to my aunt as well, explaining everything. I hope she'll understand." "And if she doesn't?" Lucas asked quietly. Serena turned to face him fully. "I think this is where I'm meant to be. When I lost my parents, I felt so alone, as if my future had been ripped away. But now," she gestured to the peaceful scene around them, "now I feel like I've found something I didn't even know I was searching for." Lucas reached into his pocket and pulled out a small package wrapped in brown paper. "I got you something, to celebrate your new position." Serena unwrapped it carefully. Inside was the blue ribbon she had seen him admiring in the general store, along with a silver brooch shaped like a small book. "Lucas, they're beautiful," she whispered, touched by his thoughtfulness. "I thought the ribbon would look nice in your hair," he said, a hint of shyness in his voice, "and the brooch seemed fitting for a schoolteacher." Impulsively, Serena leaned forward and kissed his cheek. "Thank you." When she started to pull away, Lucas caught her hand. His eyes, earnest and full of emotion, held hers. "Serena, I need to tell you something." Her heart quickened at his serious tone. "Yes. That day I found you on the trail. I wasn't supposed to be riding that way at all. Henry had sent me in the opposite direction to check fencing." Lucas shook his head in wonder. "Something just told me to take the South Trail instead. I can't explain it." "Providence," Serena suggested softly. "Maybe so, but what I'm trying to say is, finding you that day, it changed something in me." He squeezed her hand gently. "I know you've only been here a short time. I know you're just starting to find your footing again. But I can't imagine this place without you now." Serena's breath caught in her throat. "Lucas, I'm not asking for promises," he hurried to add. "Just time. Time for us to see if what I'm feeling, what I think you might be feeling too, is real." Instead of answering with words, Serena leaned forward again, this time pressing her lips gently against his. The kiss was brief but filled with promise. "I think I'd like that," she whispered as they parted. Time to see where this leads. The following day, Serena testified at the trial of the two captured outlaws. Her clear, unwavering account of the robbery convinced the judge, and both men were sentenced to hang for murder. Though the other 3 gang members remained at large, the sheriff promised they wouldn't escape justice for long. As summer turned to autumn, Serena settled into her role as Silver Springs' new schoolteacher. She rented a small cabin near the schoolhouse but spent most weekends at Silver Creek Ranch, where Lucas was teaching her to ride properly and shoot a rifle, just in case. Their courtship progressed slowly, respectfully, with Lucas calling formally at her cabin and taking her to church socials and town dances. By Christmas, when he presented her with a small ring, a single pearl set in silver, no one in town was surprised. "I'm not rushing you," he assured her as he slipped it onto her finger. "But I wanted you to know my intentions are honorable and permanent." Serena's answer was another kiss, longer and more certain than their first beside the creek. "My feet have healed," she told him with a smile, "but my heart belongs right here." They were married the following spring, with Martha Wilson shedding happy tears and Henry looking proud as he walked Serena down the aisle in the absence of her father. Her aunt traveled from San Francisco for the ceremony, bringing fabrics and patterns as a wedding gift and her blessing for Serena's new life. The town presented them with a wedding gift as well as a small parcel of land just outside Silver Springs, with a sturdy cabin that Lucas had been secretly repairing for months. It was close enough for Serena to continue teaching while Lucas maintained his position at Silver Creek Ranch. On their wedding night, as they lay together in their new home, Serena traced the scar near Lucas's eye that she had first noticed months before. "Do you ever think about how different our lives would be if you hadn't found me that day?" she asked softly. Lucas caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. "I try not to. The thought of you out there, alone." He shook his head. "I believe we were meant to find each other, Serena. Some things are just written in the stars. Like a bleeding-footed schoolteacher and a cowboy with a knack for being in the right place at the right time." She teased gently. "Exactly like that." Lucas smiled, pulling her closer. "And I plan to be in the right place right here beside you for the rest of our days." As the years passed, their love only deepened. Serena continued teaching until their first child was born, a daughter they named Hope in honor of what had sustained Serena during her darkest moments on that dusty trail. 2 sons followed, strong boys who learned to ride almost before they could walk. Sometimes, on summer evenings when the children were asleep, Lucas and Serena would sit on their porch and watch the sunset paint the western sky. He would take her feet into his lap, his fingers gently tracing the scars that remained a permanent reminder of the journey that had brought them together. "Do they still hurt sometimes?" he would ask. And Serena would smile, remembering that first day when he had wrapped them in cloth and carried her to safety. "No," she would answer truthfully. "They led me exactly where I was meant to be."